Education meeting for Monday, what is it, September 9th? We have Jamie Lewis Gonzalez is not here, and I have Tracy Rankin by phone. Everybody say hi, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy. Hi, Tracy.
She's working hard in Texas, helping with the hurricane relief effort, so we appreciate her taking the time to call in tonight. If everyone would stand to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first order of business is the adoption of the agenda, including the supplemental personnel report.
I make a motion for approval.
I would second that.
We have a motion by Tammy and a second by Jeff. All in favor? Aye. 6-0. And I didn't have a chance to check with Jamie on the approval of bills. Do you know, Karen? Yes. Okay. Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the bills for this month.
I second.
So we have a motion by Lisa and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0. Okay, next up we have a special presentation from Dodge City High School, the KATA report.
Good evening. We have students that participated in the CATA camp, and I'd like to invite them right up here so they can share their experience. Audrey Phelps and Amaris Carpenter.
I don't know if you can see.
So hi, I'm Audrey Phelps. I'm a senior at Dodge City High School, and this summer I got the privilege to go to CATA, which is the Kansas Advanced Teacher Academy. Excuse me. It was mind-blowing. Like, we had a whole bunch of professors from K-State come and talk to us. One was about teaching with, instructional teaching with gaming. So it was all about games and how that can relate to little kids learning. One was about technology, one was writing, one was a different method of teaching math. And what's kind of funny about this is Ms. Weiss asked me on Friday to present, and I was like, yes, of course. But I didn't have to go back and look through my notes and what did I learn? Because it's all stuck, because it was all like, this is what I want to do. And I've never really thought of is teaching what I want to do, but it's always I wanted to be a teacher, and now I just can't wait to have my own classroom and my own students. So I'm really excited for that.
That's awesome.
I made her promise she'd come back.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Amaris Carpenter. I am also a senior, and I also attended CATA, and I had an amazing time. I created such connections with many friends that I still talk to now, and I learned a whole lot. It definitely confirmed that I wanted to be a teacher.
That's great.
Just learning the different ways, how you can incorporate games. We played Dungeons and Dragons with a group of 5th graders that were there for the STEM camp, and while they didn't know it, they were using probability, statistics. They were using their imagination because they had to imagine how is this fight going on, and it really it was amazing to see how you can sneakily add those little things that you can learn just in a game. And I definitely had a fun time, and if I could, I would do it again.
Very exciting.
That's great.
Very good.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank
That's
you
exciting.
very much.
So board members, just to close, you paid for that. I don't know if you know or not, but you did, and we very much appreciate it. And I can tell you, Kansas City, Kansas brought a bus load of kids. This Vice drove a Suburban for free. So we may try to get a bus this summer.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I vote yes.
Thank you for coming, ladies. Thanks for
Very
sharing with
exciting.
us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, girls. We appreciate it greatly.
Next up, HR.
And next we have Maria Kane. And I'll just take you back to early summer. If you remember, we watched a video of Maria participating in Marine Boot Camp, and you asked to have her come and speak. She's here tonight, so
Very
just
good.
want her to come up and share.
Thank you.
Good evening. I did not bring any videos. They are on KSN and KWCH's website if you would like to go back. Some of them are quite entertaining. But my name's Maria Kane, and I took the opportunity this summer to spend the first week of June in San Diego at the Marine Educators Workshop. It was a workshop that was a really good opportunity for me to be able to gain some insight and experience of what our students would go through if they were going through recruit training in the Marines. So the way they structured the event was by the phases that the Marines would go through. So the first day that we got off the bus, we started by getting yelled at and orders shouted at us and trying to confuse us. And then after we tried to gain some balance, we set out to do the physical activities, which is probably what you saw in the video. I'm not exactly sure. I realized I am not in shape to be a Marine. They did not ask me to stay. I am much too old. So, the second day of the workshop, we actually got to go over to Miramar, which is where Top Gun was. We watched some of the Offspring and the fighter pilots. We got to see the different dogs that they had. But we also got to tour the museum, and they had veterans show us around the museum and tell us their history. And something that was really beneficial from that is we learned that all of the Marines take extra courses in history. And that is something that we can bring back to our classes. And so we can take the recruiters who are trained in those classes, or the Marine history classes, bring them back into our history classes to teach their versions of the historical aspects, something that will split things up a little bit from what they're seeing in class every day. So just to get a different perspective. The final day of the actual physical part of our training was at Camp Pendleton, where we did marksmanship training. Every Marine a rifleman is their saying, and so through our training, we were also rifleman-ish. We did hand-to-hand combat, which was a lot of fun, but then we also got to go through their Eagle Globe and anchor ceremony, which was really, really powerful. We got to see the Marines come off of their final quest, so to speak, and get pinned and actually be called Marines, which was very, very powerful for the Marines, for the drill sergeants, and for us as educators to see them accomplish something and get to experience that. And then Friday was the final day of our workshop, and we got to go through graduation. And so we really got to experience every step that those Marines did, and it was a fabulous experience, something that I think will benefit a lot of our students at Dodge City High School, because we are now able to recognize some of the characteristics that the Marines are looking for, as well as some of the other service branches. We also got a new Marine recruiter in Dodge City over the summer, Staff Sergeant Ree, and we have put him to use already. He was at the counselor's office this morning visiting with a student, but he has a full schedule with us. On Monday, he is going to be in the counselor's office for students to visit. On Tuesday of next week, he is doing a military careers talk with all of the branches as much as possible of matching those MOSs to civilian careers. So the students who have their heart set on a certain career, he can show them some options and other alternate routes of getting those, obtaining those careers and getting some funding to help pay for those. And then on Thursday, he's going to be coming out to talk about the NROTC scholarship. So just another way that our students can pay for college.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, next up we have Stuco reports. First up we have Alexa Martinez Alba from Dodge City High School.
Oh, hi. Okay.
Excellent.
My name is Alexa Martinez Alba, and I'm representing the Dodge City High School Student Council. I'm the president for the 2019-2020 school year. So this week is actually Suicide Prevention Week, so we are having a number of events going on this week to promote a healthy lifestyle, and their main focus for this week is self-care. We have homecoming scholarship applications out. The deadline is Thursday, and we're going to announce the candidates next week. Currently, Student Council is focusing on all things homecoming, such as the parade, spirit days, and theme. Homecoming week is September 23rd through the 27th. Besides homecoming, my goal with Student Council this year is to focus more on developing leaders and encouraging more active participation with the school rather than just doing homecoming and not much else. We are going to be doing a lot more with the community as well as community service projects, giving back to the teachers and staff. We are going to try to get the community involved as well. Then we are going to be having class leadership September 30th, and then we're going to go to the regional conference October 3rd in Garden City. We're going to have 15 student council representatives going, and we're going to go and represent DCHS. I'm really excited for this year and what student council will do, and I thank you all for your support.
Great.
Thank
you,
you.
Alexa.
Thank you.
Very sweet.
All right, next up, forgive me if I mispronounce, Arias, did I get it? No? Armenta from Comanche.
Arias.
Arias Armenta.
Good evening. My name is Arias Armenta, and I'm the Student Council President for Comanche Middle School. This school year has started off great, especially for our athletes. Our current fall sports are football, volleyball, and cross country, and as supporters, cheer and drill team. Our Comanche football team, both 7th and 8th grade, took a win against the Liberal Apaches last Thursday. Volleyball recently had a match in Holcomb, doing great, and are still working to get better. Also, our cross country team had a meet running their best in Great Bend, competing with other school districts. Not leaving out cheer and drill team, they have also been working hard and practicing to support our Comanche Coyotes. Moving on to academics, we are working on improving our state scores. Our awesome principals came up with the idea of shortening our classes to 47 minutes each, giving us a 47-minute impact. Each day we have a different purpose for our impact. On Mondays and Tuesdays we have social emotional lessons, which is one of the new things we have started this year. Social emotional lessons are a way of the teachers and staff knowing how we feel. I really like this idea because it's a way of showing that the staff at Comanche care about how we feel. Moving on to Wednesdays and Thursdays, we have One Book, One School. On One Book, One School days, both students and staff read the same book. The purpose of this is so we all can have something to talk about and create new friendships. Finally, on Fridays is work time, where we get to catch up on any missing assignments we have. I really like all the changes the principals have made this year, and I'm proud of being a Comanche Coyote. Thank you.
Thank you, Arias.
I have a question. What book are you reading now?
The book we're reading is called House Arrest.
Thank you. Do you like it?
Very good. All right, and finally, we have Maybelline Morales from Dodge City Middle School.
Good evening. My name is Maybelline Morales, and I am the Stuco president at Dodge City Middle School. Fall season sports have started to have their first games and meets. We want to wish our Dodge City athletes good luck. They are doing very well. The cheerleading and drill team participated in Spirit Spreader. They learned a dance and a couple cheers. They are using these to help be positive role models at school events. Student Council is currently working on electing new members. Our goal is to choose 15 6th graders, 10 7th graders, and 5 8th graders. National Junior Honor Society is continuing to work with Joe Coles this year at class leadership. They are learning how to make small changes in the school that will benefit the school's atmosphere. This will happen over 3 sessions with the other Kansas schools. We are happy that DCMS is starting up their extracurricular clubs such as Drama Club, Yearbook Club, 0 Hour Weights Club, and intramurals. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Maybelline.
I appreciate all three of you presenting tonight, and you can support each other through the year, but we always look forward to hearing from each of you. And I'll tell you one secret, after your reports are over, you're free to leave when you want, but you're always welcome to stay all night if you so desire. Don't feel like you have to stay here.
It doesn't get any better. They're the highlight.
Thank you, girls.
That doesn't go for everybody.
Yeah. Specifically to the student council presenters.
Is the new building going to have air conditioning?
That'll be extra. All right, we're ready for recognition of visitors. Persons may present ideas or concerns regarding USD 443 schools. No action will be taken by the board at this meeting. Personalities and behavior of employees are not to be presented during this period, but are to be reported to the employee's immediate supervisor. The president shall determine the amount of time to be spent for citizen participation. And we have Blanca Soto and Ernesto de la Rosa from Kansas Appleseed that would like to speak.
Kansas Appleseed and the city of Dodge City. He's not employed by my organization. I see a lot of familiar faces, so there's a lot of people that I don't know. So I'm Blanca Soto with Kansas Appleseed, and I'm here to talk to you about the 2020 census for next year. My position was created by the Kansas Health Foundation in collaboration with Governor Kelly to address the really low response from the 2020 census. Dodge City and all of Southwest Kansas, really, we had about a 70% response rate in the 2020 census. Because of our demographics, there's a lot of problems in reaching a lot of the community. So one of the strategies that we decided to work on is to get a lot of partnerships with the city of Dodge City, but also the school district, and reaching out next year our communities. We have met with Dr. Dirksen, and he's going to be facilitating some assistance in making sure that we get to a lot of your schools to talk to our families directly. And there's a lot of changes that are coming up, they're going to create a lot of problems. One of them is, in past years, the census has only been done on paper. This next year, there's going to be the possibility of filling out the census online and also by phone, which can either be a really good thing or a really negative thing, since we have a lot of families who don't have access to technology. Plus, the language barrier will be even more when they have to do it online, and there's very few languages that it's going to be translated into. Thankfully, Spanish is going to be one of them, but as we know in our community, we need more than just Spanish. So I'm going to have Ernesto talk to you a little bit more about what's happening at the local level.
Good evening, Chair, board members. Ernesto de la Rosa with the City of Dodge City, Assistant City Manager. Really, my goal here is to basically get your attention to the Census 2020. At the local level, we are working with different partners along with Kansas Appleseed. And our entire goal is to increase participation within the Census 2020. And in our community specifically, people of color, there's a lot of concern with the census, providing information specifically with the immigrant community. So what we've done with Dodge City and also Ford County is formed a complete count committee. And again, is to increase participation throughout the census. Within our committee, we have included people of different races, making sure that the different groups are represented to make sure that we have the trust in the relationships and get people to participate. Through that committee, we are planning different activities throughout the year until the Census 2020. Including those, we look forward to working with the school district to be at different conferences or events to just provide education. And when it's time to the census in the spring of 2020, we plan to do more intensive activities, including door-to-door in some of the areas of concern or hard to count, as well as census presentations, and we will also host census stations to allow people to do the census. Again, our entire goal is to increase participation, making sure that we have a complete count in our community. Just as we rely on those numbers, we rely on those funding in our community, and we want to be sure that we are counted and everyone is counted. So we look forward to your to working with school district and to be at your different schools. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming.
There's going to be some information at the table if anybody wants to grab more information on the way out, or I can always deliver some to your schools.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming.
I just wanted to add that I've pledged support to the census and to their efforts because it is critically important to the school district, but it's just as important to the city of Dodge City. Mm-hmm. And they will be visiting with principals at different events, and they will have a kiosk or a table that is available at those different functions in an effort to build trust. And we want to work together and will, and possibly with that technology, we may help provide some technology availability when that time comes, because we have it and could certainly use it. It's not political, it's the law. You have a census every 10 years and it's required, and it is important that we are as accurate as we can be. So I just wanted to make sure the board knew where I stood on that, and I've shared that information with all the administrators and will continue to do so.
It's vital. Yeah, I mean, our representation too in the state is, it's all involved in,
Funds?
it's vital, so.
Yeah, I think just real quick, there is, for every person that is not counted in the county, the county is listing $20,200 for every person for you. That's a lot of money we're going to lose this.
Yeah. Sure is.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the consent agenda, which includes a lot of donations. Approval of personnel, including the supplemental personnel report. Approval of minutes from our August 26th Board of Education meeting. Approval of donation from Bunkle Orthodontics for Dodge City High School Band. Approval of donation from, is it Gerds Farm?
Yep.
For high school choir. Approval of donation from Remax Villa for high school band. Approval of donation from Steve and Paula Thompson for the band. Approval of donation from Viertaler Kessen for the band. Approval of donation from the Women's Chamber for Dodge City High School Boys Cross Country, and from for girls cross country. Approval of donation of additional Safe Con memorial funds for Dodge City High School golf program. Approval of donation from Dodge Petroleum for Dodge City High School soccer, and from Kinswater for soccer as well. Approval of donation from Star Computer Solution for the band. A donation from Family Practice Associates of Western Kansas for soccer. From First Dental for soccer. Approval of purchase of Scholastic culturally responsive book sets for ELA classrooms and libraries. Approval of Community Foundation of Southwest Kansas grant application for Bright Beginnings. And the approval of Community Foundation of Southwest Kansas and Arthur E. and Cornelia C. Scroggins Foundation grant application, also for Bright Beginnings. And then the Bright Beginnings Early Childhood Center annual report.
The Scholastic responsive books, is that in addition to what they use in their classrooms, or what is that? They could explain that just a little bit, what that was. The book sets, English language?
Part of the link funds, we're trying to make sure that as we move forward, as we had the three main goals, and one of them was cultural responsiveness in the classroom. So we started going through classroom book sets and things in libraries, and found that we needed to have more books that are reflective of the kids in our classrooms, and so those are kind of a beginning to start bringing in different types of literature than what we have historically had.
So will they be in the libraries or in each
I
classroom?
think these are directly classroom sets to start with.
Classroom
The
sets.
librarians have like their own order pieces and stuff, and so they'll go through and start working on that in individual libraries. But to really kind of get this in books in the kids' hands, we were putting them in the classrooms to start with.
And this is something that works in with their regular curriculum? All right, thank you.
This is part of the LINK grant?
Okay, I make a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion by Tammy and a second by Pamela. All in favor? Aye. 6-0.
Madam President, if I may, with that approval of the personnel report, I do want to point out that I'm very grateful to now have a Director of Business and Finance, and he's with us here tonight, and appreciate the extra effort that Hammer has made. He met with the staff tonight before the tour. He met at our council meeting last week, and he officially doesn't start duty until the 23rd, but it's nice to have him here and in attendance tonight. So he's starting to put his foot in the water, get
Very
a
good.
feel for it. So
Welcome.
glad to have him here.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, good evening, Dr. Dirksen, Board of Education. My item is, I brought this to you at the last board meeting as an informational item. Nothing on the narrative has changed. What I will say is the next step after this, I did, after the last board meeting, ask the instructional coaches to go back to their buildings and go through the materials that they have and make sure that anything that's in current circulation is part of our approved curriculum and support materials that they pull out. And then I did ask them to look for anything that would be like books or things that kids could take home that aren't like basils. And so they have been working on that. As of last Friday, there wasn't a lot of materials that they had found, but I will verify again before I work with Mr. Myers here to start removing materials not only from the building next to the Learning Center, but also from the buildings themselves. And so we'll have a designated location. This does fall within the purview of Board Policy DFM. I just wanted to make sure that we had time to get it out to the public. We could do our due diligence to vet this and then be able to dispose of it properly. So I am recommending approval from the board to dispose all instructional materials that are not currently board approved or in circulation.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion by Pamela and a second by Ryan. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you taking the time to see if anybody could use those other books. I appreciate that.
Related to that, in conversation we had in the tour tonight, and the three assistants, Deputy Soups and Chris need to be involved in this, but I think we do need to be thinking about what is in Trails West, and we might have to inventory a list, because as we think about the move that will be coming up in less than a year, we need to think about not moving things that we're only moving to get rid of. And so I think that would start with an inventory, it'd be my guess, and that's something we need to think about, because I'm sure there's some educational desks, student desks, teacher desks. I'm sure there's things you couldn't even list. But anyway, we did talk about that tonight, and I heard a consensus from the board to get rid of what we're not going to use.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to think about that and start moving in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. Public information.
Good evening, Madam President, Board, Dr. Dirksen. I come to you this evening. The first item is for information only, and I must say to the Ring of Honor Committee, they really work very, very hard. So this is my first year to observe them in action, and they really look for very worthy candidates. So I cannot state that enough. This year, the two are Camellia Klein Havland, class of 1944. And I think most notably, she is known for being the first female judge in Ford County from 1957 and 1977. So I know you have a full packet in your board, but I did want to mention that. And then also Mike Montgomery, class of 1967. And one of his comments was that Dodge City has a special place in my heart. Dodge City was the springboard into my adult life. And to my teammates, you are awesome, and you are right here with me to receive this honor. So I know it's a very large honor, and when it's bestowed upon these individuals, they certainly understand how important it is. I would also mention, please take part in the Ring of Honor activities that we have throughout the week.
It's Camilla.
Camilla,
It's Camilla.
my apologies.
And she was a hoot. I knew her real well.
I think
Oh,
maybe
my
so,
word.
and very proud of her golfing membership.
Yes.
So
She was
she's
amazing.
a very lively personality.
Yes.
Absolutely, to be honored. The item that I bring before you this evening, where I'm requesting action, is for the purchase or an upgrade for printer equipment for our printing office. And basically what has happened, we've had many service calls recently where we've had some issues with that. And we have the opportunity, because of another purchase that's happening within the state of Kansas, to upgrade our equipment for minimal expense on top of the current lease agreement that we have. And that will be $1,339 when the contract is due, which is in April. And if you'll note, we made a correction of that and put that in your packet, and I do want the minutes to reflect that, but the lease will expire in the month of April 2020. So it's just an opportunity to make that agreement and say, yes, we would move forward with that. And in the contract, Century United offered to move the new equipment to our facility here and then move it again to the new building. They will come in, set it up, make sure everything is working well. And then also we'll do it again for the new administration office.
great.
In the meantime, they will set up the printer we have now that we struggle with down in the Kansas Heritage space so that we have a backup and we can make sure we can continue printing the print jobs that are coming into the office. Right now, we're completely booked through the first week of October, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that we can keep printing the projects that come our way. But we've had repairmen every other day.
We don't send anything out for printing anymore, do we?
Well,
We don't
we're
have to.
trying to,
Actually, we
as
did.
much as we can, print as much as we can in-house because we can save money. With the upgrade, we're going to have some very nice features where actually you can use print with white ink and those kind of things, which will allow for some nice effects that we haven't had historically.
And we're actually going to make a concerted effort to do more printing and a lot less outsourced. But we can't start that effort
Yes.
until we have the equipment in place, because if we start it and tell them you need to do it here, and it doesn't come out the way they want, we won't get them back, and they'll spend their department budgets, et cetera. So we're trying to put everything together, so.
We had a great opportunity to be able to take a look at making this upgrade with, like I said, very minimal cost when it comes around time to renew our lease.
We truly wanted to wait until we moved to the new facility, but because of the condition that the current machine is in, and because of the fact that there was another school district in the state ordering a very similar machine, we were able to get a price reduction. And so it was a matter of needing to make things happen now, is my understanding.
Absolutely.
Some of those machines are very heat sensitive. Is it?
It's much cooler over there. You might be interested in moving the board meeting over there.
Yeah,
because
we
do
should
have
have the board meeting in the
just
print
on
shop.
the other side of this
They
one.
are. They're very heat sensitive.
Good point.
They don't get hot well.
Cargill has called us about extra, no. It's that cold, though.
Yes. So that is the action that I'm requesting this evening, that you do approve it. And again, I do ask that in the minutes it would reflect that the lease is up in April 2020.
I'll move for approval.
Okay. Motion by Ryan and a second by Jeff. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. All right, business services, Dr. Dirksen.
Okay, first item up is a memorandum of understanding, which actually we've talked about, but I'm asking for formal approval. And basically, we have an MOU with the county involving safe shelters, but this one is specific to the transportation and needs of evacuation. And my honest opinion is we would do what was right at the time of need, but I think just to make things formal, an MOU is called for to be in place. So that would be handed over to the Director of Emergency Operations at the time, and the school district is definitely one of the involved parties in a situation like that. And this just supports it with board formal approval that you would allow for that during those situations. So I'd ask your support of that through this MOU.
Definitely, because one of the things with Katrina, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, they never moved the school buses. They never used the school buses to evacuate people.
The mayor was.
So I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Jeff and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0.
Okay, the next items are a succession of items that are individualized because they each involve the move from the current administration office to the new administration. The plan is to have everything in place, as we talked about, for the spring break move, in which everything will take place. Unfortunately, Ray, I might add, has a sibling that is not doing well and had some major surgery in South Dakota, and he's unable to be with us today. And is not here to report to give you the in-depth. I've talked with Ray about all three of these, and they're all needed, once again, relate to the move and the fiber path. So other than that, I have little explanation other than what's on the consideration sheet, and would just ask for the approval of each one.
Was this, I mean, we knew we were going to have to do that when we built up there?
We knew we were going to have to do that, yeah. Very simply, the fiber comes to this building. We want the fiber to go to that building. In order for that to happen, there's a process that has to be in place, yes. And that will have to come from,
Capital outlay.
yeah, be the capital outlay fund, and it will eventually be attributed to expense of the building. However, it's not the building itself, just to be clear, but it is. It's a requirement. And as we talked about earlier, it's a requirement that it's in place early so that we can make all the moves that we need to make, so.
Okay,
I'll make a motion for approval.
all right.
Second.
Motion by Tammy and a second by Ryan. All in favor? 6-0.
All right. The next item is conveniently related to what I just said. Looks like we're extending conduit from the new building street. I'll lean on my assistants to bail me out here with anything further to say. Deputy Superintendent, this is a good time for you.
Yeah, you got off easy tonight, Dr. Frinkson.
We were counting on Ray, and now I'm counting on you. No, I don't know any more to say about it, other than I know Ray has spent a lot of time on all three of these items. And they all relate to the fiber and the wiring and the conduit that is needed for the new facility. So
I'll move for
I mean,
approval.
it is
Yeah.
serious business.
It's just part
Total
of
of
it.
57,000.
We've got a motion by Ryan.
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor? 6-0.
Yep. And the final item, it was close enough to the 20,000. There's no games to be played here. We want you to know everything that is being spent. And it did involve the Cox Internet service, and for the same reasons.
Okay,
Make a motion for approval.
all right. Motion by Tammy, second by Jeff. All in favor? 6-0.
Okay. The next item came from the maintenance department, and they would like to switch over more to this system, this Tersano cleaning system. It uses less chemical. We have had it in 2 buildings already, right, Chris? We've had it in 2 buildings already, and we've had great success with it. We're going to extend that. However, reason we're not going throughout the whole district is we're going to use up the current chemical that we have in the buildings that we have, in the products that we have, so that we can eventually make a switch over. But I think the ultimate goal is to go with this throughout the district. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, sir. Basically takes ordinary water, turns it into aqueous ozone water. So we get rid of about 90% of our chemicals we're currently using today. It's safer and it's more efficient. We're going to save somewhere around 60 to 65% on our annual chemical cost.
Wow.
What current facilities?
We currently use it at the Comanche Middle School, and we currently use it at the Dodge City High School and parts of the building. When somebody came up and said you could use ordinary water and clean with, I thought they were crazy.
Yeah.
So we've been testing it. It works. It's proven. Lawrence School, Liberal, Hutchinson, they've all changed over to this system. And it's really a good cost savings and safer for the students and staff.
Yeah.
All right.
Very good.
So we're in that process of.
Saving 60% of how much? I don't know how much you spend on chemicals, cleaning chemicals a year approximately, so. But if you're saving 60%,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that much.
Yep.
And so what schools will this,
We would completely change over the Dodge City High School, Dodge City Middle School, and Comanche are 3 biggest users of chemical. Then we would just take the chemical that's in their building, distribute it to the other buildings and use it up. Eventually, we would like to go district-wide with this, and it saves time and money, so.
very good.
Yeah. It'll phase out throughout the whole district. And,
Okay,
all right.
I'll make that motion to approve cleaning systems.
Second.
motion by Jeff and a second by Ryan. All in favor? 6-0.
Okay. The next item is just a renewal of a software that we're using for work orders and scheduling events at the Civic Center. I think you made a presentation when you switched over to this, and you're actually just asking for a renewal of that contract. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What was the new renewal compared to year?
Have we had this renewal before, or last
Yes.
year wasn't the first year we had this?
No, we've had this for 8 years.
So how does this price compare to the year before? Has it gone up, or does it go up each year incrementally?
I'd have to look, but it hasn't gone up a lot.
Do you know, Karen?
It did go up a little bit this year, not a lot. Last year it was around 17,000, a little bit over 17,000. I don't know the number.
So it went up a little more than 1,000.
3%?
We'll try to look up that number and get it to you.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
don't know
curious what
what
they're
it was in the
trying to
past.
get
I'll
you
make
to.
sure I get that to you. Okay.
Anything with dude in it, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Jeff and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0.
Okay, and then the last item, also from the maintenance department, was, along with all of what we're doing, there is a system that is available that can help do an assessment of facilities with both long-range forecasting, capital needs, and as well as trying to do some project decision-making along the way. Chris talked to me about this. I'm a little precautious about it. However, I think there could be some value in it, and Chris felt the same way. So we're going to give it a test on our oldest elementary and our newest elementary. And that's what we stayed with, isn't it? Will Road?
Yeah, Will Rhodes and Ross Elementary.
Will Rhodes and Ross, yes. And we're going to see how those reports come back and what information it does tell us and how valuable it is. It does take some money to do this, so we wanted to go at it slowly. We wanted to look at it, but that will help give Chris a projection of what needs might be there and what we need to be thinking about. So what else do you want to know, Chris? What do you want them to know?
It's just a full assessment. They have a third party that comes in and does a full assessment from the roofs down to the ground, and they'll bring back a plan so that we can go for the next 10 to 15 years out on big expenditures like roofs, rooftops, parking lots. Plus, they'll do a complete inventory of every piece of equipment in the building except for some electrical items and things like that. And it will help build a preventive maintenance program too when we're all completely done, so we can wrap that up into our work order program.
Do you know anyone else who's using this?
Not around here. It's a lot of the eastern schools back east do. I can get a list if you would like.
The only value I see is that it would also help us in budgeting.
Yeah, it would,
I mean,
it would definitely
if-
help
if-
with budgeting.
And that would, sometimes these things scare me because they come back with outlandish things.
Yeah.
Yep,
But
yep.
we have a huge plant.
We have a
It's just-
large plant.
It's just amazing how,
And our new high school
property
is
we have.
20 years old almost, and not very much new anymore. So.
it's hard to believe.
But we still call it the new high
The
school.
new high school, yes. I mean, this will just give us a kind of a roadmap of big expenditures coming down the road that we'll at least understand what's ahead of us.
Part of the intention is to evaluate the system as it evaluates our facilities. And I think, if you think about it, we're doing the same with our heating and air conditioning systems in each building. We're going through that process. And so this is the structural side of that, looking at the facilities and that sort of thing as well, so.
The only thing I want, maybe this is just peculiar to my experience, but we do this and then we don't, it goes in a drawer somewhere. That's what scares me.
This is, it's on our online, so it's basically a live unit every time. So if we make changes, we update it. You can pull reports on it at any time. So it's not just a book they hand you at the end, it's actual live data. So it's going to be another module to our work order program, School Dude Solutions.
Okay.
So with the school dudes that
going back to that.
Yeah.
It kind of helps you then monitor and progress and
Yeah.
complete, things like that to assist.
And then it will give us a cost estimate, like if we spent like $20,000 on a piece of machinery that's only worth $30,000, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's time to replace it. So that will help us do estimating of that so that we can make smart decisions.
All right, I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
And I'd like to add too, is the one-time cost, the big cost, that's just to do the evaluation. Then it's a yearly service fee after that.
And how much might that be?
$3,797.80.
Is that for the two schools, or is that per
That's
school?
just if we add all, that's just for the first two, and if we add all of them, it won't change. So,
So it's still the 3,000 even
yeah,
if we
because
have?
they base it off of your student population.
So what do they do for that $3,000 a year?
They maintain the software, and just update it, and if you need any help, they help you.
Neat.
I just want to make sure that we're updated. I'd like to see how it works.
Yeah, they said it was gonna take about 6 months to collect all the data, and to have 100%, it would be 12 months to come back with a full report, so.
Okay.
When we get that report, we should bring it to the board so that we can kind of give an update on where we're at and what we think of it. Because as I said earlier, I feel like we need to evaluate this program
Yeah.
the way they're evaluating our systems.
That's an expensive.
I didn't want to go do the whole district at once. I want to make sure it's going to work for us, because like I said, I don't want to do the same thing, Jeff. I don't want to have something that doesn't work for us. So,
And so we pay the 15 and then we are obligated to the 3,000 for the 1 year?
yeah, for the 1 year, yes.
It's 18.
And then if we don't feel it works for us, then we can, but we still have all the data at that point. We wouldn't lose it. It would just be on paper.
Okay.
So Pamela said 18. You're asking for the 15,000, the 15.
It would be the full 18.
Right, not 18. It's just the
No,
15. Yeah.
On page 107 in your packet, it has that cost, and that's included.
Oh, there you go.
15,313.
Do I need to amend
That's
that
what's on
motion?
the consideration sheet.
15,
Yeah,
but then plus the,
yeah, and 3,000.
Okay, we had a motion. Was it Ryan? Did you make the motion? Or Jeff?
I think I did.
Jeff made the motion and Ryan second? Does that sound right?
Not yet, but I will.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor? Are you a no?
I'm a no.
Okay, we all opposed?
I'd like to see it in use someplace a little closer to us.
All right, so motion passes 5-1.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item we have actually ties into a couple other conversations, but this one is about Memorial Stadium update. And I really can't talk about Memorial Stadium update without talking about the capital outlay as well. And I was going to wait, and I told Lisa we're going to wait till we did the committee report, but I'm going to talk about that now and then tie into Memorial Stadium. Because I met with Chris and Molly and I've talked to the administrators at Administrative Council to explain. I feel like there is a huge need to revamp our capital outlay committee and our capital outlay projects. And in looking at our needs for Memorial Stadium, it is quite apparent there is not a pool of money set aside for Memorial Stadium. When you factor in all the things we have to factor with capital outlay and what we spend on a yearly average. So looking at our situation right now, I made a decision that we need to start with $1.1 million for Memorial Stadium out of this year's capital outlay that we set aside. If you look at the phases that we're trying to develop for Memorial Stadium, 1.1 million doesn't get you the project. And I don't want to start the project until we can do the project. And so I believe it's imperative that we set aside this 1.1 million because that gives us, if you will, a safety net if something drastic was to happen. And then it gives us a reserve so that next year we hopefully can attribute even more dollars to it. And then we will have a project on our hands and can possibly do phase 1 and phase 2 in a longitudinal line. The meantime is an important aspect of it because we already have an architect, we already have a construction manager at risk, and we already have a huge need. And that huge need is the sewer line before we ever start. And the sewer line, amongst other things, goes directly from north to south under Memorial Stadium. And the city is quite concerned about that and actually has plans that they've drawn up, unbeknownst to us, to bypass Memorial Stadium and to go around. Which, as we started this Memorial Stadium project, not one person knew that at the time. And in one sense, this changes everything. Yet it doesn't change anything at all. The thing is, we need to start and do it right. And so what I've explained that we need to do is we need to get our ducks in a row. And it starts with that sewer line. And it starts with having actual plans that can be in place. Jeff's been on the committee and he knows we've had some difficulties making all the connections. Clayton is here and he knows. But we need to get some actual plans in place with our architect, Blaine Davis, who is working with Brian Marshall, our construction manager at risk, and move toward that target. On the capital outlay side of things, when we set aside money that we know we're going to spend and we have current projects that we know we're going to spend, we're looking at, and we haven't fine-tuned that number, but we're looking at less than $1 million that we're actually going to have for capital outlay projects. But Chris has put together a list of what's not to be included in those projects, and I'll share that with you once we've looked it all over. But it includes things like we have a scheduled carpet replacement for buildings, and we have carpet service needs that we do. That no one should have to ask for that. We need to have a rotation of that, and we need to do it. I heard some interesting stories about how that process has evolved over the years, and we're to where we have a real system now. I've been adamant that we need to have a playground replacement that includes the turf, and that shouldn't be decided by a committee. That should be decided administratively, that we're going to have a rotation for that is going to take place and is going to be fair to every school all the time. And we're developing that system. And we're going to have other things that are in place that don't take away. So essentially, what I'm looking at right now, the committee is going to look at some innovative ideas that different schools have that may fit within our capital outlay needs, and we can determine what we can afford and what has the greatest need at the time. It's going to be a real committee with real meetings, and it's going to be real dollars. Instead of sitting here every month and hearing that we don't meet and we haven't met. And the thing that I told the council is we're starting over. All these things that have been on the list that people thought they were, I can't control that. We have a new business and finance manager now, and we're starting from a new platform. And I'm very excited about it. And I think there are several things that we now have in place that need to be added to this so that it is worthwhile. And the bottom line is we just need to be honest with you and fair. And if we come to you and all we have is $300,000 in a year, that's all we have. And that's what we're going to choose from this committee. And so Molly and Chris and I felt good about the meeting that we had, and I think that we're walking away with a true understanding. To be very open and very honest, we're trying to, 6.7 million is the amount of money that we have right now in capital outlay. And that sounds like a lot until you look at how much we spend every year. And that does not include the revenue we have coming in this year. But if we spend the revenue that we have coming in this year, then we are not going to have any money next year to start out with capital outlay. And so we're trying to live off the rears, if you will, of what we have each year that we bring in. That 1.1 million, I feel like, is a reserve that we're dedicating to Memorial Stadium. There's been a lot of talk about the fact that we do have gifts and grants. We have some other pockets where we have money. We also have money in contingency reserve. I don't want to start a project out of gifts and grants or contingency reserve. We may finish the project, when we get to the capstone and we're talking about the press box and the finishing touches, we may look to that because we know that we're finishing that. And I have high hopes, and I guess there's a game going on, but the athletic director's not here, but I have high hopes that we can draw a lot of interest in the community and maybe from the Alumni Association as we put together some of the final touches. I don't think we should go to them just to get started because we've known for years that the restrooms and locker rooms need updated. That's all part of phase one. So as I look to Memorial Stadium, it definitely involves our capital outlay fund, and that's kind of a pulling together of both of those items and where we're at and what we're trying to accomplish.
So you're going to go back to having each of the buildings submit a new need list for capital outlay? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. We're going to determine the actual amount that we're going to work with, and we're going to determine how that committee pulls together and involves the board. I only saw one meeting in the 2.5 years that I've been here. There literally only been one capital outlay meeting that I went to, and it was a fiasco. And it was built largely on safety and security. And now, through grants and through the bomb project and through all the construction that we've done, safety and security is always a need, and it can be a fair need. But I think we need to think about what can we do to improve education as well through capital outlay needs.
I think it's just so important that we're transparent with what's going on. And I think when principals turn in a capital outlay list, I think they need to hear back, this is what we can and can't do. And then they can mark off that list and.
I totally agree with that, and that's why I've talked to council. That's why I've met with Molly and Chris, and that's why I'm sharing this with you and putting it on TV, because we are being transparent.
I think that's important, and I also.
There's nothing to hide. It is what it is, and the reality is that there has not been a budgeted amount set aside for Memorial Stadium. It's going to have to come from capital outlay, and this is the way that I see it needs to be targeted.
And I appreciate not starting a project unless we have the money to do it. I think that's the way we need to.
Yep. And I know exactly what you're saying. I do want to be clear, though, that I do feel like we have started this project. We're just not to the point where we're ready to open a phase.
Right.
And we got to be able to pay for it when we do it.
Right. I really appreciate the restructuring of the capital outlay system. How you do it, because Pamela's brought it to our attention that we got things scattered everywhere. So I think this is phenomenal. I appreciate the effort.
And this is a perfect time with the new business director and with the new school year. We're coming in all together, and so we're on the right system, we're on the right path.
So we can expect every month to get a capital outlay report.
If you don't get it here, you'll get it by week in review, and yes, Molly is working on that diligently. Chris and I and Molly sat down and went through every single item and that is on that list that you've seen, and we have some terrific updates because there's been a lot of progress, and some of them needed to be updated because they've never been intended to, and that was just and that's in the past, and I don't want to dwell on that. I want to move forward with those needs, and we'll start from there.
Okay, maybe that's where I missed something. So those previous capital outlay projects that have been submitted, we're still trying to make progress.
If they've been approved by the board, they're on the
Okay,
list,
then
and
they're
they'll
on the
stay
li-
on the
okay.
list. If they've been approved by the board, yes, and everything that we have. Right, Chris? I'm not speaking out of turn on that. Those items that are there that have been approved by the board, and if we're not moving towards those, we'll report that back to you. Help me out. Were they three parking lots, or there were three items that the board has knowledge of, but it's kind of moved around? What was that?
The Comanche Middle School parking lot, Memorial Stadium, and Lynn.
Yes. Well, the board's approved $150,000 for Memorial Stadium parking lot, and I don't want to spend any more than the repairs. When we get a crater that loses a VW, we're going to spend some money on that.
Right.
And we had that before the Shrine Bowl. And the thing is, Chris will fill that up, and it will, a 3-inch washout, it will be a lunar curve again. And
Where are we on the Comanche parking lot? Because, we bought a house and we did all kind of stuff.
we actually have an update on that, and I think we have Swab Eaton giving us a full report soon.
Should be by the end of the month or middle of next month. They should be done with the design of it, the cost estimate of the project.
Yep.
We just need to figure out what to do with the house.
We still have, we own one house. Has it been tore down?
No.
It has not been tore down yet. And that's the one that you denied the bid on. Yeah, that's where we're at on that. And so, but we do have, looking right at you when I said that.
Thank
yeah.
you. I get Fred.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's where that project is, and that was part of what we talked about. But an example, we did approve that $150,000 for Memorial's parking lot. Until we know what we want to do with that, I'm not spending $150,000 on a parking lot that we're going to eventually tear up. Because we have another project going, we just as well talk about this now too. You know how you come out of Bright Beginnings and that road curves?
Mm-hmm.
That road is falling down. It is sliding down the hill. And eventually, if nothing is done, that road will slide down the hill. Well, Chris and I looked at that together, and there actually is a simpler process that can work. And that is when you come out of Bright Beginnings, you go straight to the west and extend that exit off the hill farther, which serves two purposes. It gets you down to the bottom grade faster, and it puts you into the back of getting in line with the parking. Have you ever seen the confusion of coming out of Right Beginnings and trying to get in line with those that are on the other side? You find out who the friendly neighbors are in a hurry.
It's not
And so by changing that, it'll be less expensive. The footings that were required for the other way were way too expensive. And so we have that going on. And another point to make, found out during this sewer talk going around Memorial Stadium, the city doesn't want us upgrading the parking lot because of the depth of the sewer line in the parking lot. They would rather us do something differently that we need to pay attention to. And there are other options on how you make that grade up there rather than starting at the street and sloping it all up. And all those things have to be considered, and we have to listen to the city as well, so.
I kind of want to say this in an open meeting. If you're not happy with the architect that we've hired, I mean, because I heard some rumblings, and we need somebody that's going to be timely.
You know, we all get paid for responsibilities, and they're huge, and so I'm going to lean to the school council at this time and ask him to comment on that.
Well, I know, I just say, if on the committee, if you're, no,
Hope you were paying attention, Clayton.
we live in an at-will state, brother, I'm telling you.
I guess I'll just speak of recently, when it comes to the construction manager at risk contract, Blaine and I have been working on that together, and he did get that to me in a timely fashion. It's
Okay.
not to you guys for consideration yet, but I feel like that has improved.
Yep.
Okay.
It is true, we've had some frustrations and we've had some delays that could have been avoided. But we are seeing some cooperation at this time, so I appreciate your comments, Clayton. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, that covers a lot of ground, but that is a Memorial Stadium update, and for good measure, we threw in the capital outlay as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay, next item, in my opinion, is the most important item that we have to discuss tonight, and we've already covered quite a few important items. And I have asked all three of the assistant and deputy superintendents to chime in as needed. Basically, we have a situation that is coming that we need to be paying attention to. And that is, I think, in full disclosure, the bond issue was sold with the idea that we would add additional classrooms. In adding additional classrooms, I believe it was felt at the time that the bond passed that we were growing in enrollment about 100 a year. And the last 2 years, we saw little or no growth. We actually saw a decline in growth in the last 2 years. As we currently sit this year, that probably is going to be a different story this year. And that may add confusion, but it definitely requires that it adds our attention. because we're really coming to some crossroads that we need to think about as far as what we're going to do. I deal with very professional superintendents, and they have angst about what we're going to do or what we're not going to do on both sides. There is research to support both issues of adding additional classrooms or not, basically is what I'm saying, because the one thing research will tell you is if you have a bad teacher, you're going to have a bad class.
Exactly.
If you have a lot of teachers can handle a lot of kids. However, if you want to be real about it, it is, for all teachers, there is a variance between dealing with 27 kids at a time and dealing with 18 students at a time in your classroom. So both of those factors weigh in. I have both camps that have discussed this issue with me, and I felt like we needed to bring it to the board. We started out with the idea that we were going to add additional classrooms to, help me out, Tammy, Central.
Initially, we added 2 to Central, 1 to Sewell, and 1 to Miller.
1 to Miller.
And then this school year, we reduced the roll-up at Central to 3 section instead of 4.
And we found some difficulties along the way, because when you're only adding sections at the lower grades, if they move here and they have siblings at the upper grades, they don't fit into that choice, because we don't have the additional classes higher up. And so that's added to frustration for some families around.
And that's one of the main reasons why we slowed Central's roll down. If they had 2 sections of 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade and 4 sections of kindergarten, we couldn't place the sibling. And so we were not able to fill those as we initially had thought. And so that's one of the reasons too why we slowed that down.
So in a nutshell, the system comes down to, are we going to continue this all the way through 5th grade? Are we going to stop it at 2nd grade and then deal with some of those problems of adding a class? Because currently we're at kindergarten and 1st grade.
Yes, that's correct.
And then next year we'll add an additional teacher to 2nd grade.
So we have 4 sections in kindergarten and 1st grade.
4 sections at Miller and Sewell, and those are currently 3-section buildings. So we've added 1 more section to their kindergarten and 1st grade. And then Central now is 3 sections at kindergarten and 1st, and then the rest of the grades are right now at 2 sections.
Okay,
correct?
okay.
If you look at your chart on page 123, that's actually depicted for you. And you can see what the progression would be along the way. There also is, there's an expense that comes with this when you add all of these additional teachers. There's an additional factor there, and that's in the middle row, if you will, and in the bottom of what the additional staff would be. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me tonight because it does not matter until September 20th. Whatever number I give you is inconsequential because the official count day is on the 20th. And I can tell you, it looks very optimistic from an increase point of view. It does look like our enrollment is up this year across the board. We have one of the larger kindergarten classes we've had in years. I think we're at 568 when I checked last week of kindergartners.
And we've had some more come in.
I'm sorry?
And we've had some more enroll.
We've had some more come in. And then another number to give you is last year Sacred Heart had 166 students, and this year their enrollment is at 148. So when I look at a number and it's increased, and our overall enrollment has increased at 7,400 and some, and 18 more of those are district students than Sacred Heart students. Does that make sense? Because of their number being smaller. And so I'm very optimistic that our number is going to show an increase this year, which is good for the next 2 years for budgetary purposes to have an increase. That's just the way it works in the world of FTE. And that has to be offset. We have to remember something. The last 2 years, we've been living off of new facilities waiting, one-time money that we get because of our bond project. And that all but goes away next year because the lion's share of it was the last 2 years. There may be 1 or 2 rooms that we actually count next year, but it'll be very small. So the increase will help make up that difference in funding as well. So basically, there needs to be some information provided for you that basically presents to you the problem that we have. And I shared with the board that I want to hear the direction from the school board, because what I've heard from most of you is that that was what the bond issue was built on. And so that's really the direction that you have indicated that you want it to go. But I need to hear that from you rather than just trying to defend that.
You mean low class sizes? Is that what you're saying?
We built those additional classrooms to use them.
Right.
And we have, because Central has 4, there are 4 sections, they have enough for 4, right? Is that correct?
They are not a 4-section school.
But I mean,
They have enough
They have the
classrooms
facility to be a 4-section.
Capability.
And that was before my time, and that was decided late.
Right.
The original
You're
bond
right.
issue passed a 3-section school for Central. And then it was decided after the bond issue passed, it was decided to expand that to a 4-section school. I do not believe I'm talking out of turn, am I?
No.
Everybody agree with that?
I don't know.
No, you're exactly right,
You're right.
because we received a premium on the bonds.
Yes.
And we had the money to do it.
And it was felt that many students around Central, that's where our densest population was, and that was
Right.
why they went with the,
That's what I was told when I got on the board.
yeah,
that
that's what I was
Central had
told.
But I asked for a chart showing all the students that lived.
That's right.
You know, where they lived and where they went, but I never got it.
Well,
I believe that's available through the State Department. I think they do something like that, don't they?
I think we can get that from transportation, maybe even.
Yeah, maybe from transportation.
I am in favor of smaller classrooms. I feel like that's how we can best serve our students, is by keeping our classrooms small.
Do all classrooms have a pair in them, is that correct?
No.
No.
No. Currently, we have it set up so that we have a para in per kindergarten. So you have a teacher and a para in kindergarten. Most elementary schools have one in first grade also. Some of them may have done like 2 for 3 sections because second grade happened to have a high need this year or whatever. But for the most part, K1 has a pair in each classroom, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5 do share. There isn't one per classroom there.
Is there one per grade level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes 2. It just kind of depended on, but our paras primarily are funded out of our title funds and our at-risk funds. So then depending on the number of students in each elementary school, and then depending on free and reduced lunch or other factors, that generates what funds are each building would get. So depending on the size and the need, then that's how those dollars are generated, and that's what pays for almost all of our paraprofessionals at the elementary level.
Another thing I want to point out that is of interest, I believe, enrollment-wise, is currently both middle schools serve over 770 students, which is a large increase from last year for both. And that trend, according to the enrollment figures that I don't see, is not changing. Our smallest class is our senior class, and the next smallest class was
The high school is lower, but elementary-wise, right now, our smallest class is first grade.
and how many is that? Do you remember right offhand?
5.
Yeah. Each one of them is
20,
over
30
500.
something.
Our smallest class is at the high school, and what's the,
We're limited, like in our CNA classes, they can only have 12. Our welding classes can only, depending on the size of shops, but our core classes are averaging 27 and 28.
and we have one of the larger enrollments at the high school we've had in a while, don't we? So, I mean, we're large all over. But that 770 is significant because I remember Mike King sitting right back there when he said 800 is about the capacity of DCMS. And we're at 770 now, and I think if you look at the projection, we've got to pay attention to that. So it's not just the new classrooms we have to pay attention to. There are several facility needs that we have to pay attention to.
What's bringing the new students in? I mean, is this something that we project out and they're going to continue to come in?
It's hard to articulate that. So I talked with First Stop, who receives the new students, and we kind of wondered if we might receive more people from Garden City after the plant situation and that kind of stuff, and we really haven't. So we do have a lot of people moving here to live with family members, and so we've had a lot of people from like Guatemala and Honduras most recently, but then again, just kind of coming into work.
Yeah,
Some
they're
of our
apparently
new
finding
people
employment.
we've hired brought children,
Yep.
so it's been kind of a combination.
And there are several things in the work, if you've attended any chamber meetings or whatever. I mean, there are some businesses that are talking about coming to town. There are some that are building right now. So, I mean, this is a good problem to have, and there's some very positive energy that is going on in Dodge City, and we're seeing the result of that through an increased enrollment. I would lots rather be talking to you about this difficulty than to be talking to you about a drastic decline and a drop. So this is not a complaint at all. It's just, it's real. And what I need to know so that we can be progressive in the direction that we make is what are your feelings about the bond issue and the facilities and what direction we need to be going?
Well, when Mike King said 800 was the max, is that after the expansion? That's after the expansion? I mean,
Yeah, because when we did that, I thought we were talking about.
Let's hear from Faye.
I thought it was 900.
I would say that it was with that expansion in mind, as later on the conversations would come up that are,
Faye, do you mind going to the microphone just so,
Yeah.
because this is going to be broadcast and it is an important topic. I'm sorry. And anyone else, if we have this conversation tonight, please go to the mic just so we can make sure it's on television, because I continually am amazed at who comes up to me and says they watch this on TV.
I want to say, yes, that was with the expansion, because later on, we talked about how our maker spaces would probably have to become classrooms.
what's the average? I mean, we got 27 in the core classes.
That's at the high school.
At the high school. What
I want to say that's about some of ours too. Actually, our science and social studies might be sitting at close to 28, 29.
That's why
Some
my
of our
wife comes home
electives
early.
are at that as well.
I do remember the meeting and being surprised because we felt like we were set, and then he brought that up, and we had that thought that, well, we're going to have to get creative on what we do.
Well, and we've had to get creative too, because with the, Tammy, help me out here, but with the additional classrooms, we were trying to go at 20 for kindergarten.
Right.
20 per class, and then the
And we upped
enrollment
it to
kept coming.
21.
We moved to 21.
And we've upped it to 22, and
We
schools
have
are
19
starting to
sections.
fill.
Yeah,
No, we have
stop right there.
27 sections of kindergarten.
We have how many classes?
27.
27 sections of kindergarten.
And
We've already had to move that number up to 21,
And we're at 22. Some of the schools are already full at 22 again.
and we're going back to 20. I mean, and this has all happened over the summer. So what about first grade?
So right now, that goal is still 20, because we haven't changed that, and that's always a goal. I mean, if we have more students, we put in more students. So the goal for KN1 was 20, but we just don't have the sections, and we have a lot of kindergartners coming in this year, and so we've raised that. First grade is still set for a goal of 20, but then second grade through fifth grade's goal right now is 23. And I say that because with our school choice piece, when families come in, they still select their top 3 choices. But if a school is full at 23 in each classroom, then we will say that school is full, here are other options. So we don't enroll one school while another one's sitting with 15 kids and one has 25 kids. So pushing those numbers down has helped us even out across the district, and we're pretty even for the most part. There's a couple of classrooms that aren't, but If, just like the kindergarten example, if everybody hits that 20 mark, we'll have to raise it. If everybody hits 23 at another grade level, we'll have to raise it.
So what, go ahead, yes.
Go ahead, Tracy.
So is there a way that we can go back and be a little more creative? A possible, for example, possible solutions, we take one school and increase all of those grades at a time instead of one grade per school, per section. So like we take Sewell and we go K through 5 next year, get them all up to one section. So that opens up more options for families that have kids in multiple grades, and just change our model than what it currently is? Or is that even plausible?
Well, anything's possible. However, right now, the only way for that to really work is to force transfer. So if we opened up that as an example with Sewell, and then allowed people to say, hey, we have extra classrooms, you can go there. I guess as an example, when we did that to Ross, a lot of people stayed at Northwest or at Lynn because they were comfortable with their school. And so then those schools had very high class sizes where some of the upper grades at Ross, when that first opened, was quite a bit lower. So if we did something like that, we would have to do either forced transfer or know that it's going to take a little while for those upper grades to fill. Where if we do put it in the rolling piece, as the kids make that selection initially, then they just stay within. So, I mean, there's pros and cons either way. And right now, our class sizes are adequate at the upper level because the numbers are a little bit smaller. And I'll give an example. We have an extra fifth grade class at Sunnyside. So Sunnyside is a 2-section school right now, except for fifth grade. That has 3 sections. And we've done that because that was our really big kindergarten classroom 6 years ago. And so we've done a lot of adjustments based on the numbers.
So how many are in those fifth grades?
Pardon me?
How many are in those fifth grades at Sunnyside?
Right. I can't give an exact number at Sunnyside, but almost all of our fifth grade classes are between that 21, 23 range. They're pretty equitable. There might be 1 or 2 classrooms that are different than that, and I can share that. At least what current enrollment looks like in each of those classrooms.
John, do you know?
It's 22 or 23.
Okay.
Dr. Dirksen, that 2-year trend of decline in enrollment, what was the numbers on that? Was that significant decline over those previous 2 years?
6 last year, and the year before it was less than 30.
Okay, so we're talking nominal.
Yeah, we're talking very
Okay,
nominal.
yeah, very nominal, okay.
But it was a decline.
Well, if you're talking about to meet the needs, cost of new staff by 2024 at $1.3 million, that doesn't scare me at all.
Me neither.
I mean,
I understand that. We kind of needed to hear your philosophy of what you want, and I want you to know my philosophy is, as long as we see growth, I think that this is an obvious decision that we have to meet the needs, because right now, with kindergarten, for instance, we're actually wondering what else can we do? I mean, we're getting to the point where we're wondering if we don't need to have another class somewhere. So, we definitely have to think that. I do want to say this, and Tammy did a great job of explaining that. I do believe whatever we do, the rolling in is the best systemic way to do it. Otherwise, you're specializing at one school and giving favor, if you will, to that school. And I think the best way to do it is to roll it in with the schools we have the growth model developed for. That's just an opinion from the superintendent.
And just as a... There you go.
Do what now?
There you go. I'll schedule the bus for the teacher camp.
Oh, no, I was talking about money. I said the 1.3.
To have
We have to have teachers.
that we can hire.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, it's not easy.
I think that's the extra piece to it, we're setting up.
Absolutely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, 35 long-term subs right now. And that's another piece you gotta think about. You had classrooms.
Oh, no doubt.
5 teachers, so that's where Jackie's.
The biggest teacher cadet class we've ever had, and we've got to give them a reason to stay in Dodge City.
Amen.
And in the sense of growth, right now we're talking about the role of Central into a 3-section. So it does have space for a 4-section. So we could add an additional section at Central. And then Sunnyside also has the capability of being a 3-section school. And so at some point, we are currently rolling up 3 places for sections, but we have 2 more available that if our student body does continue to increase at that time, we do have growth flexibility at the elementary level for several years.
We just need teachers. That's the old teacher. These are, I think, very workable classrooms. I don't think 24, 25, and I'll probably get shot tomorrow for this, but 24, 25, I don't think is too high for a classroom. When you have a quality teacher, they can handle it, they can do it, and I think our teachers in this district are quality.
Well, if you're talking 3rd grade up, maybe, I think it's a whole different picture with for kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, getting that high. There's a big difference between, in my opinion, of 24 to 20 kids.
And our kids are coming in with some pretty severe needs, a lot of behavioral, social, emotional pieces. So that, depending on the scenario, there's just a lot of factors.
And plus, if you have 23, 24 English-speaking kids, when you have 3 different languages,
That's different.
that's a whole new world.
Scott, did you have something?
Dr. Dirksen said at the beginning, I think that's the great thing about this team is we're able to bring a diverse set of viewpoints and then to the board. And he said at the beginning that there are, and we've talked about this at depth for quite a few months. And I think it's in totality to the board, we went back and looked at ballot language, we looked at printed publications and informational campaign stuff that went out by advisors that the district hired and so forth. And it did talk about lowering class size. I think the fundamental question isn't whether or not class sizes have a positive benefit. I think you can dig deeper because there's 2 benefits to that. There's a climate benefit to teachers because they feel better with lower class sizes, potentially. That's an assumption. But then there's also a deeper one. It's the student outcomes. And I know I shared with you guys, and it's hard with these things because it's hard to argue against lower class sizes being a good thing, but I think it's been pointed out very clearly, the impact of the quality of the instructor. That isn't in and of itself the only thing, it's probably the most important thing, and the belief structure of the teacher, but then how solid are your processes? You know, for example, in Hattie's research that I sent you, number 4 out of 196, 1 being the best and most positive impact on student outcomes, was a tiered structure support system like MTSS or RTI. Number 1 was the collective belief structure of the teacher. Number 183 out of 196 is reducing class size. Now keep in mind that study is talking about each item in isolation. That does not mean that if we had solid processes and sound instructional strategy, that then lowering class sizes wouldn't have a significant impact above the 0.21 that it lists. And 0.4 is the hinge point. And that's using a meta-analysis. And that's one researcher out of 1,200 different research pieces. So I'm not here to say that class sizes in and of themselves won't have a positive correlation. But if there's $1.3 million potential on the table, where's the best input-output of the dollars? It may be class size, it may be a combination of that and or other things in the district. So that's what we've been struggling with, to be able to present to the board in this community, not only what the community believes, what they believe they bought when they voted for the bond, but also what we know our kids need now in an emerging and in every variable enrollment forecast. You know, the unintended consequences that Mr. Turner talked about not only is our ability to attract, half of our new teachers this year did not go through a teacher certification. That inherently doesn't make them bad or won't make them an effective teacher. That's not the case, but we're seeing a different trend of attracting. If we add more classrooms, we're going to have an issue there. We also are going to reduce the amount of time that we have in our lifespan of available space before we go back to looking at how do we add more space if our enrollment trends increase. There's a series of things that play out in this decision. It's big and it's interconnected.
In closing, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this challenge that we're looking at. What I've said from the beginning to these 3 fine people is that I believe our enrollment will predicate our next step. And with what I'm seeing currently enrollment-wise, I don't think there's any question that we need to be thinking about rolling over a continued increase as we move forward in the classes. But should something change, we've got to realize that there are aspects to it that we can control as well. But as I said earlier, this is a good problem to have, and it's a good discussion that you realize everything that is going on, so. We won't be hiding anything from you. We'll be sharing it all, okay? Any last words from you three
Last words.
on this topic?
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, be quiet. We're trying to get out of here by
You may be scared of me.
It's just getting warm right now.
Okay. We're ready for Board of Education member district responsibilities. Park and Rec Advisory Board, Tracy and Jamie. Neither one. Tracy, I assume you haven't had a chance to go to meetings on that?
No, I've been down here since our last board.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on, we've got Bright Beginnings and Head Start, Ryan.
Nothing as of yet. We'll probably have our first meeting in September.
Okay.
Or well, yeah, this month, sorry.
We are in
I
September.
think, is that right, Tammy? Next week. Yes. Oh, well, there we go. Okay, next week.
Next week.
You were right.
All right, special education, Jeff.
I think I shared with the meeting that the agreement to move into our new administration building was signed and delivered. In October, Doug Meckel will be at our meeting to begin the search process for a new director. And so those are the move and a new director. Those are two pretty huge transitions for 613. And I'm much appreciative of the staff. They've kind of soldiered on during some interesting times. And I'm excited about the future, but there's a lot ahead of us.
Legislative, I assume we don't really have much on.
I don't have.
The only thing I would add to that is legislatively, KASB kind of represents schools across the state through that whole process. And I think you get these flyers as board members, don't you?
Right.
I wanted to point out that KASB is holding a workshop on October 8th at the Learning Center in Dodge City. I think it's imperative when they're here and we're trying to be the hub of Southwest Kansas for all resources if we can. If you can attend this, I would ask that you try to attend it. In saying so, I have to give you both sides and tell you I actually have a meeting that day that I have to be at some things, but I am going to be there when I can in between on the meeting, just to recognize the representatives from KSB that come and to let them know that we do appreciate them using our facilities. I think it's really a big step, and I want them to know that we're accommodating and hospitable for their needs. And
if we just let Deborah know, she gets us all signed up for it, so it's easy.
When is that date, Fred?
October the 8th.
Right.
And if you, I'd be glad to make a copy of that flyer, Ryan, and get it to you if you don't have it, but.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I can get it off their website. Thank you.
And so moving on, we've got capital outlay, which is going to see some changes, and Tracy and Tammy will be the first to know on that, I'm assuming. Calendar committee, Pamela, there's been no meeting yet. So for next month, review district bills prior to the October board meeting. Tracy, you're down for that. If you need me to cover that, just let me know, and I would be happy to do that.
I could trade with her.
Okay.
I think I'm November. I could trade with her.
We'll wait and see where she's at and what she's doing. Okay, thank you for that. Announcements, this Friday, September 13th, Ring of Honor Pep Assembly at 9:20 at the Dodge City High School Fieldhouse. Ring of Honor induction ceremony, halftime at the football game at Memorial Stadium. Game begins at 7 o'clock. Wednesday, September 18th, new teacher cohort support from 4 to 6 at Guyman Petro. Friday, September 20th, enrollment count day for KSDE. Monday, September 23rd, Board of Education luncheon meeting at Willroads at noon. Monday, October 14th, Board of Education meeting, Austin Boardroom at 6 o'clock. Are there any items for future board meetings or additional information? Nope. And are we in need of the executive session?
I want to assure you, it is not because I'm aware of the fact that ESPN is showing not one, but two Monday Night Football games. I have no idea why there is an executive session on here, because I don't need one.
All right. You're going to ask another time, but we're going to say no.
Hey, I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Tammy, second by Ryan, all in favor.